This just made the Spurs so much more dangerous. In a crucial NBA Cup game against the Houston Rockets, the Spurs not only come up on top, but they get some key shooting and depth scoring from Champagnie, Harrison Barnes, and so much more, even with Wemby finally getting back to himself in the second half, and with De'Aaron Fox coming back tomorrow against the New Orleans Pelicans. This team is about to start that upward ascent that hopefully cannot be stopped. And look, we're going to look at a lot of things in this video, but I wanted to start off just by getting your guys' thoughts on MVP, because this right here, we were live for the games, you didn't know, and make sure you subscribe so you see when we do live watch-alongs. But we had a vote. Who was the team MVP? We had 60% Barnes, 40% Champagnie. We only had 30 people vote, so leave me your thoughts down below. But I want to actually start with Victor Wembanyama before we get to the depth and what makes this team so special going forward and so dangerous for the rest of the NBA. Victor, in just the second half, had 18 points and 2 blocks on 6 for 10 shooting, and it took him a while to get there for sure, but he started to look himself again. And on the whole game, of course, he had 22 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 8 for 16 from the field, 2 blocks, 37 minutes. Now, again, there was the issue that when Wemby was out, not having Cornet and not wanting to play Biyombo, we did try Kelly Olynyk pretty early. I mean, you can take a look at the box score here. I mean, Olynyk only played 6 minutes, but they were decent. He had a little bucket in there, but the Spurs were running some interesting lineups, but they really didn't want to rely on their bench, save Keldon Johnson and even Jeremy Sochan for a while, who had a pretty brutal game offensively. Sochan just wasn't reading the game very well. He had a couple travels, he was losing the ball, but defensively, I thought Sochan was great. But just to focus on Wemby one more time here, I know we've been saying, oh, it feels like every game this season, except for one, we've been like, oh, it's an off game from Wemby. Is this just the new normal? I don't know. I don't think so at all. We know what he can be. It's just going to take him a little while to adjust, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do. This is step 1 in that process, and as we know, I've brought up the stats before. When Wemby has a true point guard next to him, whether it's Dylan Harper, Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox, his numbers go up, and they go up big. So starting De'Aaron Fox tomorrow against the New Orleans Pelicans is going to be such a sigh of relief. I cannot wait for that. But again, take a look at the box score. There's a couple of names that stand out, and when I say it makes the Spurs so much scarier, so much harder to defend, it's because the shooting, not only from 3, but also from the free throw line, really, really stepped up tonight. And it's a reason the Spurs are now back to 3rd in the Western Conference, number 1 in their pool. Actually, point differential, I'm not really sure how much the Blazers won by. No, I think it is number 1 in the pool, though there are some other games going on now, I think, so it might not stay that way. But number 1, at least for now, in Pool C for the NBA Cup, and the group of death that a lot of people are calling it, 6-2 on the season. But the big things here, again, there's so many supporting cast members here. Stephon Castle, too, before I dive into Champagnie and Barnes, again, leave your vote on who was the game MVP. Maybe it's someone else down below. I think Stephon Castle even has a bit of a case. 14 points, 13 assists. Now, he did have 5 turnovers, but until the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter, he only had 2. And I know that sounds bad. Like, what? He had 3 turnovers in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter? He kind of did, but they were weird ones, like when there was just scrambles, and they didn't really seem like point guardy turnovers, if that makes sense. Almost turnovers that anyone could get. So I know that's sort of an excuse, but whatever. 14 points, 13 assists. At one point, he had 12 assists and 2 turnovers, if that tells you anything, right? 6 rebounds, 2 steals, a plus 25 in 36 minutes. By the way, Wemby ended only a +5 in this game. At one point, he was a team worst -19. So Wemby really bounced back from that, went +24 from partway through the second quarter until the end of the game. But Stephon Castle finally finding his passing touch has been huge. Well, it was huge this game for the Spurs. And again, I think this is a large reason why the Spurs were more efficient tonight than they have been a lot of this season. Now, the Rockets outdid the Spurs in terms of efficiency across the board. I think they were similar at the free throw line, but look, these great passes from Castle, the teammates were finishing them, and that's where we're getting into our boys here. The debate for team MVP, look, you know what? I'm actually going to hold off again. I'm going to tease you a little bit because I need to talk about big body Keldon Johnson first. Look at those old boards. 5 offensive rebounds. The guard rebounding was so crucial tonight. I thought the same thing. Jared Weiss said it perfectly. Guard rebounding is the main reason they're about to win. They did win the game. Wemby had decent playmaking in the fourth, but Castle and Champagnie have come up huge for them crashing in the fourth specifically. 13 assists for Castle, but it was the second chance points. We smoked the Rockets in second chance points. We had over 30 second chance points tonight. The Rockets actually had as many offensive rebounds as us. I think they might have even had more. But we outdid them on second chance points by a long shot. And early in the first half, we were actually down by 10, 11 points in the second quarter, and it was looking pretty rough. But then a 14-2 run. The Rockets were up 48-37. and we went into half up 51-50. That was largely due to the defense, but also some O boards. Keldon Johnson did not really get his O boards that late in the game, but midway through the game when Keldon was getting those, they were so crucial to keep the Spurs into it. So I need to shout out Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell as well for knocking down a couple of clutch threes, even though it wasn't his best shooting night from the field. But now it's into the guys who could have been MVPs. Look, Harrison Barnes, the defense was another thing entirely. Like, yeah, I led the team 24 points, 6 for 9 from 3, Mr. 100%, as Sean Elliott and Jacob Toby like to say. It felt like it was Mr. 100% tonight. I mean, look, yeah, we had the Wemby slam in KD's eyes, and we had the nice little turnaround here. But this shot here, well, Champagnie, we're going to get into him in a moment, but this one here from Barnes late in the game, 100-94, that is clutch, and that is money. The dude was so good. Not only was he knocking down the threes, he was the primary defender on Kevin Durant a lot of this game. And the second half, it was a tale of two halves in terms of defense. Coach Mitch Johnson made some incredible adjustments, and the second half involved the Spurs guarding KD a lot like other teams guard Wemby. First off, we had Harrison Barnes swarming him, even at times picking him up full court. Harrison Barnes was in Kevin Durant's personal space, which historically has led to Kevin Durant having some bad games. He's still going to score, but he had 8 turnovers tonight, a large number of them being forced because the Spurs were not only having Harrison Barnes really up close and personal, but sending doubles and forcing Durant to pass out of them, and he hadn't dealt with that a whole lot this season, so it was really cool to see how the Spurs adapted to that, and even sending some doubles on Şengün, getting a couple of steals, right? So Harrison Barnes was so good defensively on Kevin Durant that I cannot understand. Unk still got it. I saw some people saying that, like, you know, you look at the stat line, it's incredible, but somehow that doesn't even paint the whole story. So if you didn't catch the game, if you want to look at some highlights, you probably won't find Harrison Barnes' defensive highlights, but it was absolutely worth the wait. Or worth his weight in gold is what I meant to say. But Julian Champagnie was the other big one here. Again, some guard rebounding, but 22 points, 7 rebounds, 5 steals. Count them. 5 steals. The Spurs had a lot of steals. Now, early this game, it was the Spurs committing a lot of live ball turnovers, leading to a lot of fast break points from the Houston Rockets. Reed Shepherd hitting a transition 3. Tari Eason and Josh Okogie each getting a transition dunk after steals. But in that second half, again, when the Spurs were playing a more swarming, more physical defense, maybe a shout out to Sean Sweeney. Maybe this was his idea, the new acquisition from the Mavericks on our coaching staff, because he's been with Jason Kidd his whole career. He's always been so good as a defensive coach. The 5 steals from Champagnie, like some of them like passing lane interceptions, some of them straight up just poking the ball away. Barnes with 2 steals. Wemby didn't get one tonight, but Vassell with 4 steals. Castle with 2 steals. Again, like the Spurs were just all over the Houston Rockets, swarming them in the second half, and that made a massive difference to how the Spurs were able to solidify this game and keep the lead, right? It got as close as 103-100 down in the fourth quarter. Like, this was a close game. The Spurs went out to, they were down pretty big early, 11 points in the second quarter. Then they came out to an 11-point lead in the third quarter, and then the Rockets closed the gap. It's a game of runs. It's basketball. The Rockets have Durant, and they have Şengün, and they have a lot of other good players, Amen Thompson. But it was the Spurs' ability to close out by consistently hounding the Rockets on defense that forced a couple turnovers and helped the team roll to that victory. But again, the big heroes tonight in my mind, Harrison Barnes, Julian Champagnie, what games from them, Stephon Castle getting some assists, Wemby putting up a great second half. Leave me your thoughts on the MVP of this game down below. I think the Spurs are getting scarier with Fox coming back. It's exciting. That'll do it for this episode. If you enjoyed, make sure you subscribe. We're trying to get 11K. Thank you so much for tuning in every single day. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you on the next one.